evening at 6:30. I'm going to call the meeting to order. This meeting of the Seguin Independent School District has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meeting Act, Section 551.043 of the Texas Government Code. If you'll rise with us, Trustee Moreno will lead us in the pledge of allegiance to the United States flag and Texas.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to these Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Now we'll take a moment of silence. I'd like to thank everybody for coming here tonight. We'll start off with the sister Vince. We'll give over back to Gibbs.
Good evening, board members and Seguin ISD community. It is my pleasure to share a few highlights from the past month as well as some upcoming key dates. Mr. Lewis and Mr. Hilberg hosted the second Bond Oversight Committee meeting last Tuesday. This group of community members are greatly interested in the bond program, as evidenced by their questions and desire to learn about the bond project. Our next quarterly meeting will take place in December. Speaking of bond, the demolition of the visitor side of Matador Stadium is nearly completed. We have designed a plan to accommodate the remaining 3 regular season home games. These minor adjustments are necessary in order to maintain our timeline for a new stadium to be completed by August of 2020. Matador volleyball, cross country, tennis, and football are in full swing, and I look forward to the continued success of these student athletes. I was able to see them along with many more Seguin High School athletes at the annual Meet the Matadors rally last night in the Goldie Harris Gym. Thanks to the sports boosters for hosting this annual event. On the 18th, I had the special treat of visiting and eating lunch with the Breezy Meister Middle School Child Nutrition Team. And today I had the opportunity to eat an early lunch at 10 a.m. with the Vogel Elementary Child Nutrition Team. Our child nutrition staff is doing a great job providing our students and campus staff with nutritious meals. The district is again hosting the San Antonio Food Bank distribution event each month during the school year in conjunction with the Seguin High School Works Transition Program. The second community food drive will be held on Friday at 10:30 a.m. here at the Administrative Building parking lot. This Saturday, the Seguin ISD Fine Arts and Mighty Matador Marching Band are hosting the 3rd annual Seguin Marching Festival at Matador Stadium and Seguin High School. Look for the Matador Band to perform around 10:30 p.m. on Saturday night. Other important days. A board workshop will be held on October the 9th, a well-deserved Fair Day holiday for students and staff on October the 11th, and our next regular board meeting on October the 24th. Thank you, and go Matadors.
And with that, we'll go into letter D with board member reports. I'll start. Last weekend, I went to Dallas and we went to Tassie. I got 13 continuing credit hours, education hours at Tassie. Learned a whole lot. It was pretty amazing. I've been to a couple of football games, and we had XG training here before we went to Tassie, and pretty much it for me.
August 29th, I attended the City of Seguin Parks Master Plan Public Engagement Session at the Coliseum. September 6th, I attended a Seguin High School pep rally. On the 11th, I attended the special called Board of Trustees meeting. And the 13th, I attended the Matador football game versus Central Catholic. The 18th, attended XG training, and I also attended the Tassie Convention in Dallas and received, I think, 12.5 hours. And last night, I went to meet the Mats at Goldie Harris.
All right. also attended the City of Seguin Parks event for their master plan. I attended the Matador games against New Braunfels and Central Catholic and got to stay around and watch the band performance afterwards. And also attended the XG training and the Tacit TASB conference this week. I don't know how many hours it was, but I went to 11 sessions. So and I got all my steps in every day. So it was fun.
I attended meetings, workshops, and training.
On August the 30th, I attended the Antonio High football game. On the 6th of September is the pep rally for the New Braunfels game. Then attended the football game that evening. On September the 9th, I was at grandparents' breakfast at Weinert Elementary. On September the 10th, I attended the retired school personnel luncheon. I've been to some Barnes football games. On the 11th, did the special school board meeting, and then the XG final training, and like the others, I attended the TASB conference and had 12 hours credit towards that. And last night I was at meetings.
September 11th, attended the special board meeting. The 18th, the team of 8 training, and also attended the convention. With some of the sessions was the new school board member seminar, 2 sessions on special education, 2 general sessions, and also legislative updates. Participated in the XG panel also there, where we all of us represented Seguin Independent School District, and 923 yesterday in the Mass.
We've all been pretty busy with getting some continuing education and doing some activities. Next we'll have campus recognition of campus presentations. And the letter A will have Mr. Guetta introduce Ms. White from Jefferson.
It is my pleasure to introduce tonight's featured campus, Jefferson Elementary School. Mrs. Mary White served as principal at Jefferson, and she is proud to share information about the Gifted and Talented program at her school.
Good evening. Thank you very much, Mr. Jenkins, for introducing us, and Mr. Guerrero, we appreciate your introduction, and members of the board, Dr. Gutierrez. I am very pleased to be here tonight to introduce to you Mrs. Gretchen Olbrich. She is our GT teacher, and we have 2 of her outstanding students with us tonight. One fresh from her brother's football game, so we're very busy too. If they'll come up. We're going to focus in on tonight and highlight that connectivity of learning between their work last year and their work this year. This is Sienna and Jordan. Dr. Gutierrez, you might recognize Jordan. She's on your team.
Look forward to her.
Yes.
We are here this evening to share some of our learning experiences from the past and some from our hopes in the future with you. Last year, marketing was a major unit of study in our GT class. As a part of our study, we learned about the process of invention by reading parts of the book, Girls Think of Everything. Very appropriate, considering our class is all girls. We learned about who invented chocolate chip cookies and how they're invented by accident. Also, did you know that a woman named Mary Anderson invented the first windshield wiper?
What makes one product successful and another a failure? Sometimes it's all about marketing. We studied commercials of some successful products we know about to understand what makes them appealing. Terms such as fonts and needs, goods and services, branding, targeted audiences, and of course budgeting started becoming relevant to us.
We created and invented our own products and made commercials about these products, keeping our new vocabulary in mind as we worked. Talk about budgets. Wow, that was a real eye-opening experience. We learned what budgeting is and how it influences our spending. Each of us chose a career we are interested in research, the career, educational needs, salary, etc. We use that information to create our own individual budgets. Keeping in mind food, shelter, clothing are basic needs. We even figure out what we'd have to pay for income tax. That was hard work. Now we understand why our parents have to say no sometimes.
Finally, as an end-of-the-year project, the 4th and 5th grade GT students joined forces to create the Jefferson Arcade. After being inspired by a YouTube video, Kane's Arcade, we were inspired to want to do something for our community, Jefferson. We used our 4th grade marketing skills and 5th grade designing spaces skills to build and market arcade games to share with the Jefferson students, to thank them for all their hard work during this year.
Are you ready for the biggest, best arcade ever? When you enter this room, you'll never turn back. This unforgettable experience is coming to Jefferson May 22nd. Dr. Diaz, and Mr. Rogers for coming to see our arcade. What's next? This year, we continue our hard work with an idea that came to us last year in language arts, after reading a story called Architecture.
We decided it would be cool if we could build houses for dogs. Currently, we are learning some basic architecture, architects, and style. We plan to use that knowledge and the knowledge of what dogs need to be comfortable and safe to create prototypes for dog houses. Then we will present our prototypes to the 5th grade students and have them vote on the best. Finally, we plan to actually build the winning prototype.
As a side note, we are also planning to have a school-wide drive to collect dog and cat food for the Humane Society. We also hope to be able to deliver what we collect. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to share with you.
Bringing that to us, and we appreciate your strong work.
Didn't these young ladies do a great job?
With that, I'll turn it over to Sean for student, staff, and community recognition.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins, Dr. Gutierrez, trustees. Tonight, it's a pleasure to introduce someone who you've probably seen and know. He is a National Merit semifinalist. We are one of 2 high schools in the county to receive this prestigious designation. And of course, Dr. Escobar is very proud of that. He's not with us tonight, but we do have Vice Principal Chandler Block is here this evening. Andy, why don't you come forward, please? I sat down with him and had the pleasure of taking notes on his bio, and my pen just about ran out of ink. So here's a little bit about Andy. First of all, the National Merit Semifinalist Award is based upon preliminary SAT National Merit Test scores, which puts him in a very elite group, the top 1% across the country. So there are only 16,000 high school seniors across the country to become a semifinalist like Andy. And when you consider the millions and millions and millions of high school seniors in this country, it's quite an accomplishment. He's been a Seguin ISD student since 4th grade. He's actively involved in the Navy GROTC program as an operations officer. He's participated in Destination Imagination for 8 years. Of course, we have Michael Olstead, our award-winning Destination Imagination sponsor right behind me. And he's been at the global event 3 times in those 8 years. He's a member of National Honor Society, which is no surprise, serves as parliamentarian for Business Professionals of America, and does lights for Matador Theater Troop 5897. And in his spare time, he's with the Gonzales Boy Scout Troop 262. So after he graduates from Seguin High School, he plans to attend an Ivy League university and study computer science. And his parents are Thomas and Kristen McDowell of Seguin. Kristen's here. And Kristen, Michael, why don't y'all come forward? Dr. Gutierrez has a few words to say and we'll get a photo.
So on behalf of the board and administration here at Seguin ISD, just certainly want to express how proud we are of Andy for this huge accomplishment. Again, when you think about the number of students that we have in 12th grade across the country, there are only 16,000 that are recognized. And for us to be one of the 2 schools in Guadalupe County, that is a huge accomplishment. We are very proud.
Next up, we'd like to invite Rafael Alarcon, who is our director of Seguin High School, Seguin ISD Mariachi. He oversees the high school program. He's going to come up and tell us a little bit about a concert that our mariachi students attended back in July. It was a national concert and they came in 3rd place, but rather than me tell you about it, let's have Rafael come forward.
I just told them to come to the front. I didn't know if we were taking a picture or what. So we went in July to Albuquerque, New Mexico, to a conference, workshop classes, competition, and a concert event. And well, we worked very hard for that in the summer, and we came in 3rd place on that national competition. I'm extremely proud of these guys and the effort that they put in for that event, and it just kind of set the bar for where we're going for the rest of the year. So I have a student who wants to say a few words about that. He's our mariachi president.
So, good evening, respected school board members. My name is Angel Reina Moreno, and I'm here speaking as the president of the mariachi group here at the high school. I would like to say thank you for having us here tonight and for your support for these past 6 going on 7 years. It's been really fun. It's been a really good experience. And the program has grown so much thanks to the dedication of our director, Mr. Rafael Alarcon. 2 years ago, we advanced to Diamond UIL state competition. And this past summer, we placed 3rd at Albuquerque, New Mexico, which was a national competition. And our own guitarón player, Nathan Sir, he was in the master class, which he auditioned for and he competed against with colleges. And he was voted the best. He was determined to be the best. So. And we shall be hosting the Diamond State competition this year here at the high school, which is also a great opportunity for us. It should be very fun and very enjoyable. And it would be fun to represent the school in the city in this competition, allowing us to show our talent on the statewide level. And once again, I would like to say thank you for your time and for the support you have provided us.
Yeah, you all just kind of move this way so we can shoot. This all center. All right, start, guys.
Back row shift a little bit to your right. Y'all kind of mix over so there's a gap there. Now you got it. All right. Now I can see it. On three. 1, 2, 3, 3, 3. You're good. You got that one?
All right. 1, 2, 3. One more. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Tonight, it is a special privilege to recognize an individual who makes a tremendous impact in our school district, specifically at Rodriguez Elementary School. This individual has served the district for 10 years and goes above and beyond to help ensure that students and staff are assisted and prepared. This year, Rodriguez Elementary celebrates 10 amazing years of this individual serving Seguin ISD and Rodriguez. And tonight's honoree has been instrumental in the school's success. Her volunteer work started at Rodriguez 10 years ago when her grandson attended the school as a fourth grader. After her grandson was promoted to middle school, she decided to stay at Rodriguez and continue volunteering. For the next 10 years, she served the school community daily without any pay aside from the gratitude of her heart. Over the course of the last decade, she has run millions of copies, laminated miles of student work and teacher resources, die-cut thousands of letters, and has rescued many teachers with last-minute copies and favors. We are so grateful that she is a member of our Rodriguez family and Matador family. And we are incredibly thankful for her volunteer work. But wait, it gets better. Our honoree was recently hired at Rodriguez and continues to serve students and staff as a lunch monitor. In addition, talk about going above and beyond. Rodriguez, along with AJB, conducted block walks yesterday to better connect with their students and families. And this individual also participated in that effort. For these reasons, it is an honor to present this month's Superintendent Award to Yolanda Carrillo, Lunch Monitor and Volunteer Extraordinaire at Rodriguez Elementary School.
And before you go, I just wanted something. we had a trick or treat day telling her that she was going to be introduced as a new hire. And so I also want to let you know that this award was done in conjunction between all your principals. Former principal Ms. Seidenberger, who couldn't be here this evening, and Ms. Lomeda, who could not be here this evening. But we have some flowers and some stuff that's introduced, so that goes to you. And we have all the principals that you have served. All right, so we give them a round of applause.
Thank you, Rodriguez family, for being here as support.
Agenda item 3 will be audience with the board. So Seguin ISD Board of Trustees designated time for audience participation at the beginning of each meeting to hear persons who desire to make comments in accordance with board policy BCD local. A, those wishing to speak shall sign up before the meeting begins stating a concern or noting an agenda item they wish to address. B, audience participation is limited to 5 minutes. C, audience of more than 5 persons shall appoint a representative. And D, the board shall not deliberate any subject that is not on the posted agenda. We have nobody sign up, so we're going to skip to the next agenda item, closed session. The board will adjourn in the closed session pursuant to the following sections of the Texas Open Meetings Act. A, pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 55.071, 551.074, 551.129, consultation with legal counsel, including possible telephone consultation with legal counsel as necessary to address legal concerns and implications and answer any legal questions regarding posted agenda items. B, pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.074, discuss personnel matters, including appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of an employee. 1, discussion regarding early childhood center principal. We will adjourn into closed session at 6:57. We'll reconvene at 7:22. The board will take appropriate action on items as necessary as discussed in closed session. A, possible action on professional personnel, including appointment, employment, evaluation, assignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of public employees. And 1, possible action to select fall early childhood center principal.
Board of Trustees, I would like to recommend the individual as discussed during closed to be the principal of Ball Early Childhood Center.
Jenkins, I move that we approve the election of the person that was discussed as principal of the Ball Early Childhood Center.
Can I second the motion?
It has been moved by Ms. Moreno and seconded by Ms. Duncan. Is there any discussion?
It is my honor and privilege to introduce. Oh. I'm way too eager here.
So we will vote now on selection of early childhood child center principal. Those favoring, raise your right hand. The motion passes 7-0. I can't do basic math, sorry. 6-0.
Now, it is my honor and privilege to introduce Ms. Rhonda Hubela as the new principal of Ball Early
Before we allow her to take the mic, we'd like to let you know a little bit about Rhonda. She is the current interim principal at Ball Early Childhood. Ms. Hubela has 14 years of extensive leadership experience within the district as an instructional coach and assistant principal. Her relentless pursuit of excellence for students and staff will be a valuable asset at the Ball Early Childhood Center. With the knowledge and experience that comes with managing a successful elementary school, Ms. Hubela will set high expectations for our youngest matadors and set the way for continued success at Seguin ISD. Congratulations, Ms. Hubela.
Thank you.
Good evening. evening, and Dr. Gutierrez and board members. I am completely honored to be the principal at Ball Early Childhood Center, and I look forward to serving the students, the parents, and the teachers of Ball with the amazing team that's already in place. Thank you.
Reports and information items. Agenda item 6. Seguin ISD emergency operations and safety protocol to Mrs. Legore.
Good evening, Dr. Gutierrez, Board of Trustees. I am here tonight to really talk with you all about Seguin ISD emergency operations and the emergency operations plan for the district, and then of course to answer any questions, because this has been an exciting year for safety and a lot of new legislation. So we're going to just hit the highlights of that, but also talk about why this is a priority. So we start with the legislative session. We are working through a lot of new legislation, namely Senate Bill 11, which, as part of the training that you all have been going to, I am sure that you have heard a lot about this new bill. It is very thorough, and we are still waiting on quite a bit of guidance coming from TEA. However, we are implementing parts of it that we really needed to implement in order to get the school year going. And then we will continue to modify as necessary as guidance comes. And we're anticipating what some of that is, and we're moving forward with a lot of those safety protocols for the district. But this, aside from school finance, was one of the biggest impacts to school districts from this legislative session. And the safety concerns not only impact Texas, but they impact really all of the United States. And so a lot of the reasoning behind some of the new legislation was resulting from these mass casualty incidents that the country was kind of reeling from. We started the school year this year with 2 big mass casualty incidents, one in our own state, in El Paso, and then Dayton, Ohio. So we started the year knowing that this was on a lot of the minds of parents sending their kids to school, a lot on the minds of teachers and administrators as well as students. So we, of course, take school safety to be of the utmost priority as we work to keep kids safe. With the new legislation, there is a requirement that school districts have an emergency operations plan. And we have always had an emergency operations plan, but apparently some school districts have not, even though it was something that was already mandated from the Texas School Safety Center. However, now they are giving more guidance to school districts on what that should look like, and we will be getting more of that. What we have always done is in compliance with the templates that were already provided and recommended by the Texas School Safety Center. And so what that is, this is kind of the emergency Bible for the school district. And it includes, the first part is the basic plan, and then it's followed by functional annexes. And that is kind of every bad thing that you could think of that could possibly happen, from train derailments to tornadoes, into obviously the more concerning thing of being a school shooting incident. That is all detailed in the functional annexes of what would we do. And what the new law requires, which is something that we have always had as a part of our emergency operations plan, and that is prevention. So what are we doing to prevent safety issues? What are we doing to mitigate if there was some kind of problem? Then what would we do to prepare? And then how do we respond and then recover? So that is all in the emergency operations plan, depending on the different kind of incidents that happen. So our basic plan this year and our functional annexes did change a little bit with the new legislation. Because Senate Bill 11 requires, as part of our multi-hazard emergency operations plan, some new training, which we will be implementing throughout the year, and we will be getting more guidance because the legislature, they make laws and they say that guidance will be coming, and examples of, like, say, suicide prevention and whatnot, and then they give you the list. So those lists haven't necessarily come down to us yet, but we know that they will be. So a variety of new trainings, also like Stop the Bleed. We had begun that training last year, and now it is expanding to students. So we are working on implementing a lot of new training as required. Our multi-hazard EOP also has a chain of command, so that our principals or administrators understand that in that moment, they are the top of the chain of command, but then once certain people come onto their campus, how that chain of command changes and what a unified command structure looks like. So that is required to be in here. One new thing this year was substitute teachers, which we have recognized in the past. Substitutes are that group that you really need to make sure that we're training. So we have been doing that. Every group, whether it's a group of 50 or a group of 3, we are going into training to just do a little summary of emergency plans, and we give all of our substitute teachers a door magnet, just in case their door doesn't have one, so that they don't necessarily have to have a key to that door, but if their door is in locked position, which that can be done at the beginning of the day, this can go in the door frame so that they can have their door opening and closing, but then very quickly, just by removing this magnet from the door jamb, it can be locked immediately. So we make sure we just give one to all the substitutes so that they aren't ever in a panic, because our goal is to have substitutes prepared to know what to do in an event of a lockdown situation. And so we make sure that we're doing that. And then another component of the emergency operations plan is also communications. So here, that's that. The ability for people to have a phone in the room, and usually that is cell phones now, but we also have phones in rooms. And we're very excited with AT&T possibly putting a cell phone tower here that would actually help some of the cell phone issues, not only in Seguin, but especially in high school. Also built into the new law is to have handicap accessibility, what do you do in the event of an evacuation to consider students and staff that are handicapped. And then school safety drills, which we've always done. By law, it's always been required that you have the fire drills every month. But there wasn't any real guidance on other drills, and we've always mandated district-wide to have additional drills. So we will be getting guidance on exactly how many they require, but I think what we do in Seguin ISD is good. We've always had those active shooter or other emergency drills, which include lockdown and evacuation other than a fire drill. So that's good. I feel like we are on top of a lot of the emergency situations that the new law has now mandated for school districts in Texas. As part of our emergency operations plan, we have standard response protocols, and these are now what all school districts have to have. So that is something we've been training, so people, that is not new. But if you are ever on campus as a board member and there is either a drill or an actual emergency, these are the words that you will hear. Lock out, that is locking out the bad issue, and that could be as simple as, say, a dog on a playground, and we want to make sure we lock the doors and nobody goes outside to playgrounds. Or it could be that we get a call from the police and there's something going on in the neighborhood and we need to make sure that all doors, including that front, locked. So that's locking out. Lock down We don't use any weird words like the eagle has landed or anything like that to indicate we need to lock down. It's lock down. Everybody knows what that is. Evacuate, and then shelter. That's usually a weather-related situation. And then hold. Hold is very common, and so don't be alarmed if you're on campus and hear the word hold. That could be that a student might have had a seizure in the hallway and it's about to be passing period. So we just need to hold classes until the situation is under control. We continue to have our active shooter response protocols. We are in our 3rd year of effectively implementing ALICE. This is really a protocol that no matter where people might ever find themselves, they could implement these procedures and then have a higher likelihood of survivability. So this particular program is not school specific. It can be used anywhere, and as we've seen from the mass casualty incidents throughout the country, these things can happen anywhere. They can happen in banks and in Walmart and in grocery stores and theaters and open air music venues. They happen seemingly anywhere and everywhere. So I really feel like our responsibility is to citizens of Seguin to make sure that everybody knows what to do in case they find themselves in that situation. One of the mandates of the new law includes designating a district safety and security committee. So we have always had this within Seguin ISD, but now it is very specific as to who needs to be on it. And that has changed up things a little bit for us. We have always had emergency management represented, and we have the city of Seguin as well as Guadalupe County. And then local law enforcement, we have the city police as well as the county sheriff, and then we also invite local DPS because that really is our local law enforcement, and we also invite even our local Texas Ranger. Then what is new is that the president of the Board of Trustees is a mandatory member on this committee. And then what you will find later in tonight's agenda is that the Board of Trustees has to designate another board member to serve on this committee. So one of you gets to be on that role. And then the district superintendent and a designee, so you're part of the committee as well. And then a classroom teacher and 2 parents will be part of this committee. Now we have other people, and it is allowable to have other people. We really consider this committee to be a community committee. And so we invite and have as a team member the Crime Stoppers because they're the ones who provide the anonymous reporting system that we have, and we work very closely with them. Then the fire department and fire marshal. We also include our mental health services with the Children's Advocacy Center and Bluebonnet Trails. So they're invited to these too, because a lot of times what we're talking about safety-wise does include mental health issues. And then we work very regularly with juvenile services in Guadalupe County, the probation officers for juveniles, and so we have them on the team as well. So our team is growing and with the new law. And what are the requirements is this committee will be looking at recommending our emergency operations updates, consulting with law enforcement about security presence on campuses, which is something that we always discuss, especially given increased security issues in the country. We have to meet each semester and in the summer, so there's 3 meetings required. We have to post the meetings. Now the board members are part of this, but we will then go into executive session. So it's because it's safety related and there's confidentiality issues, it won't be in open session. Another one of the requirements is having a threat assessment team for the district that will also include the campuses. And so depending on the student that is being assessed, we'll look at that team membership, but what the team is required to have is certain expertise. So the law requires that the people that are on this threat assessment team must have expertise in those areas. And you can see that the areas are related to what teachers would naturally have, what counselors would naturally have, what administrators would have, but then also outside of those people. So you've got safety and security, emergency management, and law enforcement is a part of the threat assessment team. So this is something that we have been doing for years as needed when there was a situation, and these team members have come together. So this is something that we will just make sure that we now document in the way that the new law is requiring us to do. But thankfully, with the cooperative partnership that we have always maintained here in Seguin with law enforcement and with the campus administrators and mental health, we will be able to process through this. And that is all very positive for Seguin ISD. What we'll be doing as this threat assessment team is, one, there's training involved. The Region Service Center and the Texas School Safety Center provide this training, and we've already, many of us have been to the training. And it is a process to identify issues of concern, any student that needs to be looked into, and then gathering information from a variety of sources, and that includes home life, may even include neighbors. We get very much into a lot of detailed information, and then we make that assessment of whether or not it's an actual threat, more of a mental health issue, or it might not have been at all. The facts might not have even been true. And then, based on what is found by this group, it's managing the situation. What kind of support needs to be put in place for that particular student. So there is now, will be more training on exactly what this process includes, but we will take guidance and follow the protocols that the state's recommending. And when we really get to the bottom of all these new laws and Senate Bill 11, we are waiting for some advice and some help and support coming from the state, but we are moving forward with implementing, bless you, a lot of this because the school year started. And that means all the safety protocols and whatnot we had to get on with and get started with. And we look forward to finding out which one of you is going to be on the school safety team and then setting that first date. You may have seen, because this is such a concern nationwide, there's a lot of resources out, so I recommend going to the Texas School Safety Center website. It's got a variety of videos and information that is all focused on school safety. And then a new PSA. Every year there's a public service announcement that goes out really kind of reiterating the importance of school safety. And I always say before I show the video, every year, of course, it brings on some trauma. This is something that you may not want to think about, but we have to think about so that if we're ever put in a situation, we actually respond to it. So this year, when we started the first day of school, I go lighthearted before I go into the PSA. So everyone breathe. This is not far from the truth, even though it's a cartoon. How was your first day of school? Well, we had lockdown drill, and then we had an active shooter drill, and then following that we had fire drill, and then we got to meet our security guards, and then we had a video on avoiding sexual predators. That is not incredibly far from the reality that we now have. We don't do that to kids on the first day of school, though I do want you all to know that. We ease in. Yes, but these are all issues that, besides educating students, which is, really our main goal, there's all these other components to school. And now one of the biggest components is related to school safety. So the new PSA that is out now, it's from the Sandy Hook Promise.
Here, got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These helpful binders help me stay organized. These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I need for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the sneaker I want. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in our class. It's called the pencils too. These new socks? They can be a real lifesaver.
I finally found folks stay in touch with my mom.
Any questions?
Questions for Mr. Morris? That circular feasibility study on the use of metal detectors in school, anything like that, I know we've come a long way in security here at CISD.
We absolutely discussed that as part of the safety team. And yes, we also take recommendations for coming from like the Texas School Safety Center. That is a popular use of grant money. However, when school districts are looking at the real feasibility, it involves the reality that they get put at the front of the school. And that, of course, if somebody is on a mission to do harm, that may not be where the harm is coming from. And then second, you have to put an armed security person to arm them. So many of the schools that implemented those then don't really use them because they don't keep an armed guard at them the entire time, or they only use them at the beginning of the school day, which also has proven, when you look at the data of when these school shootings happen, wasn't very effective. So what school districts are finding and what studies are finding is that they've not prevented a single school shooting. So that's why we have not pursued them.
So does the school district collaborate with other school districts in the surrounding area, like once a year?
We actually meet more than that. We are part of Region 20, and Region 20 has, I think, actually the most robust of the school safety programs in the state for the region service centers. And so they bring together all of the directors of safety, so I go to those more than once a month with Region 20, and so we're closely associated with Comal and San Marcos. Well, San Marcos has come to some of the trainings because, like I said, it's kind of a go-to center, and then San Antonio and Schertz. So we're all connected and we coordinate together.
Thank you, Mr. Wilk. Under item B, Superintendent Task Force update, member recognition. I think Mr. Schmidt is up.
Good evening, members of the board, Dr. Gutierrez. I'd like to take this opportunity to bring up 3 other members of the LLS department. Ms. Halsey Dean, who is overseeing the Special Education Task Force. Donica Maria, who is overseeing our Post-Secondary Readiness Task Force. And Andrea Jaramillo, who is the Multilingual Task Force. We're going to spend just a few minutes with an update, just a little bit of background. Back in 2017-18, Dr. Gutierrez brought in with his 90-day interim plan the notion that we would build 3 task forces made up of members of the community. And this is year 3 of that initiative. So with that being said, I'm going to jump right in and talk a little bit about the gifted and talented and advanced academics task force group, which actually our new director of elementary and secondary education, Laura Cooper, has been doing some work with. The group has met once, probably about a week ago, I would say. And from what I hear, it was a very, very positive meeting. As you can see here, they started speaking and talking a little bit to curriculum development, and they came up with some recommendations. They really wanted to be able to come up with kind of looking at what we do vertically. By that I mean the elementary grade levels. Also then trying to connect that with grades 6 through 8 and then 9 through 12. They did make some recommendations. One of those recommendations was that they would develop a district instructional model for GT services. They talked a little bit about the model that we currently use and talked about some opportunities to possibly change that model down the road. Also, they talked a little bit about the implementation of GT and advanced academics program services that integrate social emotional learning. We've talked a lot about that, and we've actually, in the past couple of years, started doing more with that, really looking at the needs of all of our students, and aside from just solely the academic piece. And on the next slide, it talks about coming up with and really looking at our professional learning recommendations. We know that all of our teachers that work with GT students have to have a minimum of 6 hours of basically GT training if they work in advanced academics. Also, we have to have a 30-hour training for our first-time teachers that will be working with advanced academic and GT students. We really wanted to talk a little bit about trying to do something where we could also down the line work with some job-embedded learning, even to the point where we talked about possible internships down the road. And then family and community engagement recommendations. This does align with our strategic plan. Our second belief, our second rule, which really is to engage the family and community. They talked about trying to improve services for parents and families, talking about the needs and natures of gifted learners, just talking about what exactly are the needs of a gifted student, knowing that all students have individual differences. Just talking a little bit about some of the basics, some of the kind of the baseline of things that all parents could know, some communication there. And then engaging with community partners to try to expand the opportunities for gifted learners here in Seguin and in the larger community. So I know that this is something that is near and dear to the hearts of many here in Seguin, and I also know that we do a lot as far as kind of working on that creative piece and some of the things that we do with DI here in the community, just kind of speak to that. But like I said, the feedback that I received was positive, so that's a good note for this upcoming year.
Okay, so the multilingual task force has been very busy. Year one, we really focused in on our elementary campuses and providing and implementing dual language one-way and two-way at 4 of our quadrant campuses. That is still continuing to grow. We have Rodriguez now as a two-way campus for kinder and first grade. Second grade has gone to one-way dual language, and 3rd through 5th is still running the dual language light program where we're implementing parts of Gomez and Gomez, but not full-fledged yet. We are still working on creating resources and curriculum material to better serve our students and to assist our teachers in this process. Teachers are coming to plan together in kinder, first, and second to really dig deep into the SLAR curriculum, which is the Spanish language arts curriculum. And so we are continuing to grow in that process. Our second year, we focused in on secondary, really wanted to redefine what we were doing for our ESOL students and our long-term Ls. So we developed levels of support with new course offerings for our students. Providing teachers with professional development, again, is a huge deal. And so we trained our campus admin and our teachers on this new program. Really, it wasn't new. We were just redefining what we were doing and being very strategic with what we were doing. This year, year 3, we are working on engaging our community and our families. So we will have several nights that will be for the parents. And we will also have our second annual multicultural showcase, which last year our task force really put together and spearheaded that. So this year we will have year 2. Year 2.
Good evening. The Post-Secondary Readiness Task Force has spent the last 2 years looking at data and really trying to find ways to support our students, not just academically, but social-emotionally as well. We've had a lot of conversations about the need for our students to have some type of transition program, whether it's from elementary to middle or middle to high school, and build some of their toolboxes in terms of their social-emotional skill set. So one of the things that we're looking at doing in year 3 when it comes to instructional recommendations is continuing the academic work at elementary campuses with the implementation of AVID and those AVID strategies at a campus-wide level. And then also looking to develop some sustainable professional learning to support the use of rigor and relevance at both elementary and secondary campuses. So now that we are starting the work of using the rigor relevance framework at our elementary campuses, we really want to make sure to incorporate professional learning that continues to support teacher understanding of the rubrics and the language that is being used as they develop lessons for their students. We are also looking at some ways to continue to increase parent and community stakeholder awareness of the importance of post-secondary readiness preparation. We recognize that a lot of parents may not have the opportunity to really gain a foothold on the types of opportunities that are available to their students once they complete their coursework. So we really want to look at opportunities for bringing them to the table and helping them understand what is available to their students. And then finally, our social-emotional recommendations. Last year we started on a small scale our Max Retreat program, and that was a way of helping our 8th graders transition into high school by taking them out to HEB camp, which was a familiar setting for many of them since they've been out there during 5th grade, and putting them in a setting that was at once familiar but still took them out of their comfort zone, and really working through some social-emotional lessons with them and giving them opportunities to build some friendships, build some relationships, since we're bringing 2 elementary middle school campuses together as they transition to high school. And so in year 3, we're looking at ways to expand that program specifically through some work with the high school and the college and career ready pathways. So really looking at servicing our students in their chosen pathway and helping them build their social-emotional skill set in preparation for their chosen careers later on. Thank you.
Thank you. So for special education, we took a little more time. Our program is large and comprehensive, so we took a little time to develop a very thorough 3-year plan, focusing on goals and needs across the district. And just so you know, we had additional time in our IEPs for the development of the plans. It worked out fine. So we needed to look at multiple levels and layers of special education across all grade levels, all campuses. So our team did a really good job of focusing on the topics of concern. Including instructional recommendations, reading programs for our most significant struggling readers, cohesive special ed program plans throughout the district to provide high quality instruction, ensuring there's a full continuum of services available on all campuses to serve our students with special needs, and ensure compliance with state and federal laws, which is the underlying foundation of all special education programs. It's the basics, so we must do that. And then we looked at parent and community involvement recommendations, finding more ways to increase the involvement in activities of our parents and communities. We do our Halloween Fun Fest every year that's really taken off. In October 1st, we're doing the first of our student spotlight showcases and agency fairs where we invite all the community agencies to present to our parents. And then we have our students showcase their talents. We did that twice last year. We'll do it twice again this year. It was a big hit. So we're looking for other ways to increase parental involvement in the program. We're looking at the development of a special ed parental advisory committee in the future, so we have parents that are giving input into their needs. Staff development and professional learning is a huge component of special education. So we want to increase the opportunities for professional learning for special ed teachers, including offerings through the district and through the Region Service Center. We're part of Region 20 now, and they offer some very robust trainings for special ed teachers, so we're trying to send as many as possible to targeted trainings and support. Increased opportunities for special ed teachers to collaborate with each other in terms of what's working and what's not. And with general education teachers, we offer a special ed professional learning community once a month for our special ed teachers to get together to talk about instructional practices. And then building capacity within our administrators to supervise special ed teachers and programs, and what all that entails. Our administrators have a big job to supervising the SPED programs.
I could confirm.
So there were
That's
one
it.
set, two recommendations. Are there any questions for anybody in the task force?
About how
Yes,
many
ma'am.
members were in each task force?
Members in the task force.
Mine was a little bit bigger, I think I had one additional remark on that.
I believe with some reassignments and just staff members leaving, I was down to about 8.
We had around 12.
GT was around 8 or 9, and there's, you had some
And
people
refresh my
coming up.
memory, did teachers volunteer to serve on this, or were they hand selected?
Teachers volunteered, and ideally on a task force, you want about 8 or 9 in order to really be constructive. We also put out an application early on back in the fall of 2017 and did ask for a 3-year commitment. And so this is year 3, and as you can tell, and they only shared some highlights, but these teams really did some significant work when you think about the expansion of dual language, when you think about what we've done with expanding AVID and ensuring that we're meeting the needs of our kids as far as post-secondary readiness and some of the things that special ed highlighted. And Halsey was right in saying that is a huge department, and to be able to bring together parents and staff to really talk about some of the issues that we're trying to tackle has certainly made a big difference. And so I'm really proud of the work that these individuals have committed to. Last year when they did the update, one of the things that I shared with the board, so several of y'all were not here, was that a lot of these initiatives were not in place prior to these task forces being formed. And I'm just really proud of how they have really transformed how we are doing things in Seguin ISD. And this is the final year. I'm sure we'll continue in some way with these teams, but it was a 3-year commitment.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Item C, under school attendant redistricting process. Ms. Whitman.
Good evening, Dr. Gutierrez, Vice President Jenkins, members of the board. In your packet, you have an agenda item for us to review the process that we are proposing on attendance redistricting. It's the ultimate responsibility for setting the school attendance zones. Obviously, it falls upon the school board. Using input and guidance from school administration. The last time elected, trustees in Seguin ISD had to set the new attendance zones was back in 2010, and many of you remember that. And that was when we opened Rodriguez Elementary in Ball and closed one Seguin. So it's about time now that we relook at that piece, and these are always very difficult conversations to have. Luckily and not luckily, because of growth. I mean, some districts have to do it every 2 to 3 years with a lot of movement. We're at year 10, and now it's time to look at that process. So what I'm going to do is going to walk you through. Bill Lewis will be heading the committee. I'll be working closely with him, but he's at the chamber banquet tonight representing the school district. We will walk through the process that will be conducted with the assistance of a professional demographer, as well as a committee of parents, staff, and representatives from each campus. So why do we have to realign boundaries? And disregard that date. We haven't set an October date yet. Part of the redesign or the redistricting of the attendance zones is due obviously for possible student growth. And right now we look at our proportions at our different campuses, and obviously we do need to address the enrollment and the discrepancies at each campus. We want to balance the enrollment as much as possible, especially at our elementaries. Right now, Kankakee is probably one of our largest, with Rodriguez right behind them, and they're on each side of the community. We've got Weinert that's landlocked. Pot Lawn is growing tremendously, and then we have to look at where we're going to be with Jefferson on expanding the new bond information with new construction at Jefferson, what impact that will have. McQueenie, possibly moving McQueenie to a different location, and obviously Vogel. So there's a lot of discussions that need to be had. And then we also have to look at our alignment in middle schools. Right now, Barnes is about, I think it's about 90 kids higher than Breezy. And so that causes some equitable concerns with staffing and those things. But then we have to wait and see what the demographer will say with the Vogel housing coming up, because that will be adding obviously to Breezy. So there's lots of moving parts, lots of dynamics. And then with the new House Bill 3, what implications will pre-K, full day pre-K requirements have on each of our campuses, and I'll go through that in a few minutes. Some of the guiding principles that we're looking at for the realignment. Obviously, we want to be efficient with our utilization of facilities. We've gone through that already with you guys, with the committee, with the facilities committee, and looking at our campuses that didn't have enrollment and what we're doing with those. One of the things that's also going to happen if we do the realignment, especially with the pre-K, is the transportation piece. We could possibly do away with half day. If we're going full day, 4-year-old, and right now we're transporting kids at 7:30, at 11:30, and at 4:30, at 3:30, so there's constant movement with busing of kids at half day. And then if we do have a bad weather day, we lose half of those kids anyway because they won't come. It's not worth their time coming for 2.5 hours. Back in the 90s, the neighborhood concept was developed to keep the elementary schools in the neighborhood. That is going to be continued. I think that was a goal of the community back then. So we'll be looking at how that still looks with the growth that's coming. We want to minimize the student disruption, but that's long term. Right now it will disrupt when we look at the boundaries, but long term, what can that do to help support and sustain where kids are for maybe another 10 years? And that wouldn't be too unreasonable to look at. We want to look at our preferred functional capacities, which means what do our buildings hold without the portables? That is not something positive we want to add on our campuses. So we're going to look at what our capacities look like without the portables. Other considerations, we have a lot of programs that we're running, and you just heard from some of the folks running those programs. So we have to look at our strategic design. That goes into what do our EA classrooms look like, what do our dual language classrooms look like, and what do our link classrooms look like. So as we invest in our programs, we've got to have the strategic designs to meet the needs of kids. Sensory units. We're going to have to look at AJB. What does that do when we look at new modern middle school, and what do those learning centers look like? We're going to take some trips to see some schools, so that will give us an idea of what that looks like. Staffing costs, can we be a little bit more efficient if we reduce maybe where our programs are offered and condense the hard to fill areas such as bilingual and special ed, behavior, and EA? Can we look at condensing those programs at specific campuses to help reduce on staffing costs? And that goes into the implications and the cost of the special programs. And then right now, what our feeder patterns look like. We have pretty distinct lines. We know Guadalupe Street divides our middle schools. We know I-10 divides where some other kids go. So what is the new design going to look like, and what are those feeder patterns going to look like? As mentioned before, our last realignment was in 2010 with those campuses listed. And really the impact was really K-5. There was little impact on K-8. This year, this realignment may have a little bit more impact on the middle schools, but that will also determine what the demographer says with the new housing coming in. When we opened Rodriguez, that's when we added our 4 bilingual campuses at Rodriguez, Potlawn, Kinnicky, and Vogel. That will be reviewed again, going back to what I said a few minutes ago. Can we condense some of those programs to make sure we've got the qualified staff for those specific programs? And then also with the new ESSA report, it took the place of how they qualified. The last bullet there is program equity and compliance. How do we staff our schools, and are we staying in federal compliance with what not only the federal requirements are stating, but the state as well? Do we staff our schools fairly? They look at, do we make sure maybe Jefferson Elementary and Kinnicky Elementary What does it look like? How many new teachers do they have? How many veteran teachers do they have? How many teachers with master's degrees? So they want to make sure that our schools and our kids are getting equitable staffing. So we have to report that yearly through a federal report, and we do pretty well. We've got some pretty equitable staffing patterns going on around the district. Other topics that we're going to keep in mind, obviously, these are hard decisions to make as far as going through redistricting, because it's meaning moving kids and maybe where families thought that their kids will be going. So there's processes that we put in place. So if you have a student that was at Pot Lawn since kinder and they're in 5th grade and maybe their zone is affected, then we'll do some grandfathering with not only 5th graders and 8th graders, but also those siblings as well. Again, looking at where the bilingual and dual language programs land. And then the demographics, going back to the ESSA report, the federal report has to stay equitable among our campuses. And then the impact with the full day pre-K. We're looking at right now, we piloted our pre-K classroom at Pot Lawn. I think it's going pretty well. We've got little ones walking that hallway. We've got 15 kids that are full day in a comprehensive class, campus. So we're looking at possibly expanding that to 2 other campuses. So that would be 3 campuses that have full day pre-K, which will eliminate some of the overcrowding at fall to increase more kids at fall every child. So those are some of the details that will have to be looked at. So what's the process? It's going to take a while. As you know, many of you remember the last time we redistricted. I remember being in this room and we had to hear some hard stories from parents, and it's something we have to take very seriously and go through a really systematic process. So we've been gathering our data. We have our building capacity, and we know what our facility use looks like right now. Bill has pretty much all of that data ready to go. Tonight, we're doing our board meeting presentation to talk about the process. In October, we'll be working with each campus to get a representation from parents, staff, and community to make up a committee to help us go through this process. In November, that's when we'll have an independent demographer present the updates on where the housing is, what the enrollment projections look like, and then also collect any other input that they may see from the committee's perspective. And I think the last time that the demographer was here, that's pretty eye-opening on how detailed they can get and what the projections look like. The last part of November, we'll be reviewing and discussing what the models look like and have some final community input. December will be time to select a model to present to the board. Then we take a break, coming back in January, then there'll be a detailed workshop to the board with the demographer and hopefully the committee to present the model selected. February would be rolling out the new boundaries and upgrading student information and also staffing. That was a big move 10 years ago. So you give staff maybe some input on where they might want to transfer. They get maybe some selections on what grade level they want to teach. So we try to get some input first before final assignments are made. And then March, April, the parents will be notified officially what campuses their kids will be assigned. Obviously, this will be very transparent from day one, so parents won't be surprised in March to hear it. We'll keep this on the forefront and make sure the community is aware of what direction we're heading with the boundary and rezoning. So this is just basically the kickoff to talk about the process, and then we'll get into some more of the detail this fall. So at this point, are there any questions? That's it.
So currently, when they do this, they're going to be basing it in McLean's, going to be in the same location?
Yes. Well, yes, and that zone will be, they'll think about where that possible school will be and using that same area, probably bringing them in, but that's hard to tell with no land purchased yet, so.
And I believe 2020 is the beginning of the census report.
Yes.
But that's going to be a while before they compile.
So is there any way we could get that, report that you just gave?
Oh, absolutely, we'll be
It's on
posting.
packet.
Yeah, we will post it on the board, website tomorrow, but make sure we'll email it to you guys as well.
And the last time that we redistricted, there was a computer program that could plot all the
Yes.
addresses and kids and stuff.
That's our plotter.
Yes.
And Chris Grimm runs that, so when the committee comes together, we'll have a large projection screen, and we'll be able to throw our addresses in there to the kid, how many kids there, and it will show the plots of where the kids are and what those numbers look like. And then from there, we can pull in the demographics, so yes, that will be part of the process.
Thank you, Ms. Whitman.
All right, thank
Got
you.
A lot of work on your hands there.
There's a lot of work, yes, sir.
Okay, item 7, consent agenda items, consider possible approval as applicable. Policy B local states that the consent agenda shall include items of a routine or recurring nature grouped together under one action item. All such items shall be acted upon by one vote without separate discussion unless a board member requests that an item be withdrawn for individual consideration. The remaining items shall be adopted under a single motion and vote as applicable. I have a request to remove letter F to be out of the consent agenda items. Does any other board member have a request to remove an item? If not, can we vote on the consent items first? We'll vote on the consent items excluding item F. Do I have a motion? I guess I need to read the consent items. Let me read those to you real quick. Approval of, letter A, approval of board minutes workshop, August 15, 2019, public meeting, August 2017, August 27, 2019, regular meeting, August 27, 2019, and special meeting on September 11, 2019. Letter B, approval of tax collection report for August 2019. C, approval of donations received August 2019. D, approval of district-wide waste removal services. E, approval of authorized representatives for First Commercial Bank, NA Lone Star Investment Pool, Tex Pool, Logic, and Texas Class, MBIA. Letter G, extracurricular activity listing for 2019-2020. H, consideration of approval of certified appraisers for 2019-2020. I, Public Information Act request, August through September 2019. J, information regarding the purchase of milk products to the Texas 20 Purchasing Cooperative. K, information regarding the purchase of paper products to the Texas 20 Purchasing Cooperative. L, information regarding the purchase of 3 71-passenger buses with AC and 1 24-passenger bus to the By-Board Purchasing Cooperative. M, information regarding the purchase of bread products to the Texas 20 Purchasing Cooperative. N, information regarding the purchase of school health and related services through the CPPA Purchasing Cooperative. O, information regarding the purchase of staple food products to the Texas 20 Purchasing Cooperative. Those are the consent item agendas that are up for approval. Do I have a motion? Mr. Alenor has moved to approve. Do I hear a second? Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, we'll vote. Raise your right hand in support of the consent item agenda items. The motion carries 6-0. Unanimous there. Next, we'll have Ms. Halsey come up and talk to us about consent item F, consideration for payment of $365,000 to Tangram Rehabilitation Network Incorporated for contractor services provided by RegCare Premier at Texas Hill Country School. Thank you, Ms.
Thank you, Dr. Gutierrez, board members. It's a minor glitch brought about by this being a leap year. That we did not discover. The contract is actually for $366,000. The contract is correct. The board agenda item is not due to the leap year. We pay $1,000 a day for the residential program and did not notice that we paid $366,000. So my apologies.
Any discussion, any questions? So Nancy, do we have to approve of
To make a
this?
motion, yeah.
Well, I need to make a motion to approve consideration of payment of $366,000 to obtain from Rehabilitation Network Incorporated for contracted services provided by Res Care Premier of Texas Hill Country School. Do I hear a motion?
First by Ms. Crittenden and seconded by Mr. Guetta.
We'll vote. All in favor, raise your right hand. Motion Kevin carries 6-0. The motion passed. Thank you. Agenda item 8, action items. Letter A, approval of proposed budget amendments and financial statements for August 2019.
Good evening, members of the board, Dr. Gutierrez. We typically share the financial statements as a consent item, and that was considered this time as well. It certainly could have been. We decided to pull this as an action item simply because we wanted to give you an opportunity to discuss the financial statements, should you want to do that, because now the budget does include the impact of the compensation that was approved by the board in July. So I'm happy to answer any questions, can point out anything you'd like. Basically, the budget is as was presented at that time. Nothing has really changed. The projections that we had at that time are the same as they are now, and is what's reflected in the general operating fund budget. And incidentally, the first payroll that included the increases was the semi-monthly payroll that went out a week ago to our semi-monthly employees, and then the first monthly payroll that will include the increases will be actually later this week. And that will include retro pay for anyone whose contract started prior to September 1st. It will also include the $200 compensation for teacher classroom reimbursement. It also includes the additional contribution to health insurance premium for those who are participating.
Anyone have any questions? Do I hear a motion to approve? I have a motion approved by Mr. Guetta and a second by Mr. Amador. We can vote now. Raise your right hand in approval. Opposed? It passes 6-0. Thank you. Action item B under 8 is school safety and security committee designee. Mr. Ward?
So besides the board president, you all get to pick one person to come to the school safety committee meetings, the 3 that will be happening. So who gets to be my committee member?
I'd like to nominate Ms. Crittenden.
Okay. What's another meeting you're
We'll
Do I hear a motion to accept?
I move that we accept Denise Crittenden as the safety committee.
It has been moved by Ms. Moreno and seconded by Mr. Amador. We'll vote. Everybody raise your right hand in support of the motion. Opposed, same sign. The motion passes 6-0. Congratulations, Denise.
item 8, letter C, nominate, excuse me, sorry. Action item 8, letter C, nominate candidate for Guadalupe County Appraisal District Board of Directors. Mr. Amador served on there this last year. I'd like to nominate Mr. Amador. Mr. Amador accepts. We have a motion to accept his serving on the board of Appraisal District Board of Directors.
Rasmussen, I move to accept. Can't remember where it's at. Sure, I'll second.
We have a motion to accept by Mr. Guetta and a second by Ms. Duncan. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, we'll vote. Raise your right hand and support. Same sign for not supporting. The motion carries 6-0. Thank you, Mr. Amador, for graciously accepting that position. Action item 8, letter D, personnel action, professional employees. Ms. Whitman, you're up.
Yes, sir. Good evening. In front of you is the new election for new teacher Douglas Wheeler for Seguin High School. Mr. Wheeler was a paraprofessional with us at Weinert Elementary, and he's going to take the special education inclusion position at Seguin High School. We do have an advancement tonight that we'd like to talk with you about. That would be the new data analyst position that was approved during the budget season in the spring. For the school improvement department, we're looking at Joanne Holliday. She's currently at Seguin High School, and then the resignations listed below.
Any questions for Ms. Whitman? Do we have a motion to accept?
I move to accept.
We have a motion to accept by Ms. Duncan and a second by Mr. Amador. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, we'll vote for the personal action of professional employees. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. The motion passes 6-0.
Great. Now I want to introduce one person. So part of that advancement is, like I said, Joanne Holliday. This is exciting for Mr. Cantu's department. The data analyst position is much needed. Ms. Holliday, Ms. Holliday will be changing hats this fall. She will be the new data analyst for Seguin ISD. She has 10 years of education experience from high school math. The lady knows her math. She's also the high school testing coordinator currently. She has a firm analytical background and will help teachers and administrators efficiently focus their collaboration with real-time disaggregated data. As mentioned before, Mr. Cantu is thrilled to have Ms. Holliday join the school improvement team, and we are blessed to have her tonight. So we'd like to introduce Ms. Holliday.
Good evening, board members and Dr. Gutierrez. Thank you so much. I'm excited. That's why my voice is shaking. As she said, I am the testing and data coordinator at Seguin High School, and I'm absolutely ecstatic to be in this role. So thank you so much for this opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Board agenda item 9, board comments and requests. Any board members with comments and requests? Hearing none, we'll move to 10. We're going to adjourn. Do we have a motion to adjourn? We have a motion to adjourn by Ms. Crittenden and a second by Mr. Amador. All in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you for everybody that came out. We are officially adjourned at 8:29.